What's up, everyone? Lance Hedrick here to show you something a bit peculiar. Coffee professionals know that some of the best way to enjoy coffee is on the cupping table. We get coffee samples in and we're deciding, is this good for the customer? Let's cup it. And the way that we do that is toss some coffee into a bowl, toss some hot water on it, let it sit, break the crust, clean it up, and then after 10 minutes or so start slurping. And we're like, oh my God, this is great. And then we always are trying to chase those flavors in other areas. The reason cupping notes are what are giving on bags when they're trying to tell you the flavor is because it's essentially telling you the essence of what that coffee can give you. Maybe you get, strawberry, licorice, brown sugar, and anise on a coffee. Well, maybe on pour over you only get the strawberry and brown sugar. Maybe on espresso you just get the anise and the brown sugar. I don't know, whatever it might be. But in cupping you're able to kind of go through all of them. This has been the standard in the industry for decades, and it's because it just works. It's easy, there's no potential channeling, you're just adding water into the cup and going. But of course, there's the issue of if you wanted to drink that, you have grounds going everywhere. So then you have people who do a French press trying to emulate it, but it never is quite the same. Whenever you push it down, it goes on a flurry, you pour it into your cup, you have all this weird, it's just not the same thing. And so in Brewers Cup competitions over the past several years, people keep trying to emulate what a cupping is like. And the most fascinating one to me was just a random Australian Brewers Cup competitor years and years ago by the name of Dan Yee. He now runs a place in Sydney called Artificer, which is a lovely coffee shop that I've been to, but he was telling me about his final farewell to competitions with a fun little brew. And that's what I'm going to be showing you today, kind of a take on it, not the same way he did it, but it gave me a fun idea that I think is a fantastic way to get a great cup if you're almost out of coffee, or if you have a really expensive coffee, or if you just want to do a home cupping but you don't want to waste half of the coffee. How can we do it? He essentially took something like a martini glass. He took a metal sieve. They didn't have the Able cones back then. He used a different type of sieve, and he put it in there. He added his coffee into the sieve, and he brewed coffee, poured water over it, and he, aggressively stirred it kind of like in a cupping. And then by the end, he just pulls this out and serves the drink. By the end, I don't want a ton of particulates and a ton of colloids and things that I could potentially remove if I was really nice and gentle to the bed of coffee. So I have a slightly different approach to this, but it will still give you super full body because we're doing just full out immersion, really intense acidity, really intense kind of complexity that you can only really get on a cupping table. Counterintuitively, you want to grind a little finer than what you think your French press should be. People always teach French press is like cold brew, really, really coarse. I don't do that. I actually go finer than a V60 for my immersion brews. I find that I get a lot better tasting cup if I can get it cleaned up. Now, because we are doing a specific approach to this, we should have a pretty clean brew. So on this, I'm doing about 450 microns, which is quite a bit finer than, say, my V60, which is closer to 700 microns. Anyway, I'm doing 12 grams to 200 grams, which is identical to what I do in a cupping. 12 grams of coffee, 200 grams of water. And this is the perfect size in this little cutesy martini glass. Now, the reason I wanted a triangular glass is to match roughly the shape of my filter. And it's because I need the water to be high enough to be really exposed to the coffee inside of the filter itself, of course. So the first thing I'm going to do is pour my water into the glass. Now, this is because I don't want to pour water on top of the grounds where it's going to just make the grounds go in a frenzy and shoot out a ton of particles through these massive holes. Coffee will expand slightly and it will cause a blockade on those pores, which will be nice. It will not allow a lot of the particulates and fines to get through these if we are very gentle with our coffee bed. That's why we're doing water first and then we'll add our coffee. So we tear the scale, we get our water. I'm doing 90 degrees. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to pour in 200 grams of water. Yes, it will suck away a lot of temperature immediately. So you can do boiling if you're really worried about getting enough water temp. I don't care. I prefer a little lower temps, so, sue me. We got our water in there. Now we're going to dump our coffee right on top inside of our filter. Then we're just going to take a spoon. We're going to make sure all of it is nice and submerged. Nothing too aggressive just yet. Just like that. We just let it submerge and we start our timer. As you can see immediately, we have extractants coming out into our water, which is starting to turn brown. And it's going to take quite a bit of time to get it all really nice. Now, if we were to sit here and stir aggressively, you're going to break up a lot of the bed that is now settled inside. Now, of course, there is a crust, and we'll break that momentarily. Obviously, even though I was stirring earlier, there's still so much carbon dioxide in there, it's going to continue to rise anyway. So we need to wait and make sure that we have the carbon dioxide released. Then when we break the crust, it will all sink and it will form kind of a solid bed on the bottom. So I'm at about 40 seconds. Honestly, it's probably good enough to go ahead and break the crust, but we might as well wait a little bit longer just to ensure we don't have to continually agitate. I do like to agitate about 3 times throughout this brewing procedure, just to ensure we get a nice extraction. Now, because it is kind of forming a wall with the grounds kind of blocking the holes, it is a bit harder for the water outside of the cone to get in. It's a little harder than the water, obviously, that's already inside of it. And since as water gets more concentrated, it's not as effective of a solvent. Water goes the path of least resistance. It doesn't really want to go in and out of that membrane. It becomes more difficult. We just want to give it a little bit of help. I'm about 1.5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and kind of break this crust, make sure all the coffee falls down so it's all fully submerged. Again, nothing too intense. I'm just making sure all of that coffee is fully submerged. Once that's submerged, then we can put the spoon back down, and we're just going to let it sit. When you're brewing, as it's coming out in different concentrations, those bad boys don't want to mingle. And you can see it right here. We've been sitting for forever, and you think eventually it'll hit equilibrium. And yeah, eventually it probably will, but there are different weights in there, so maybe not. You need to get in there and stir up your brews, and it will taste different. There is a reason for the idea of stirring. I mean, look at that. You can visually see the concentration gradient, how much more concentrated it is near the bed of coffee, and how weak the concentration is near the edges of the glass. Now we're about 2.5 minutes in. Around here, I like to just stick the bottom of the spoon to the bottom and just give it a little excavation. We're not doing anything crazy because we don't want to shoot a lot of grounds through the filter. Now, of course, it's inevitable to get some coffee through that filter. I mean, they're pretty large holes, but I'm just going to kind of ensure that everything is open up and good for business, all right? We want it all to be ready to go. And then every now and then I may just kind of switch the side, just to make sure we're getting a full exposure throughout that glass. I like to let it sit about 6-7 minutes. You can let it sit even longer. In a cupping, we let the water and coffee stay together for 20 minutes. So it doesn't super matter. We're at about 4.5 minutes. What I might do is just one more time, I'm just give it a little excavation. It really depends on the coffee you have and how light it is, how difficult it is to extract, how fine you ground it. But we did just one more. Honestly, I just put it down to the bottom and made sure the very bottom's not clumping up. That's always my biggest fear is coffee can come together and tend to act hydrophobic. We don't want that. We want it to all be extracting quite nicely. All right, we fast forwarded. We're at about 7 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out and we're going to taste a sip. So what I like to do here is when I'm pulling it out, I like to go up. And you'll see how fast it drains. It's already done. And I like to put the grounds back in it once more, and it kind of dishevels them a bit more. And that ensures I get a lot of that liquid retained that is inside of there that might be highly concentrated. I want to make sure I get all the most concentrated extractants out. Now, what I do recommend is getting a nice stir going on. Make sure it's nice and turbulent. And we'll do that just right there. Now, of course, this will have some of that sludge in there similar to a French press because we went through a metal sieve. So it's not going to be the cleanest cup of coffee in the world. That being said, it should be highly flavorful. So it is very important to give this really good stirring because it does not want to integrate very well. But once you have a good stir, you're good to go. Now, this should be sitting at around 20-21% extraction, more than high enough for whatever you need. And you already have it in a fancy little martini glass. So, Bond. James Bond. So what I'm going to do right now is just put this through a V60 filter, and you can see how quickly it runs through. Spilled a little, but it's all good. But as you can see, it's running through rather quickly. There is going to be some silt in there. Again, metal filter. But for the most part, we were able to hold back a lot of that due to the fact we weren't pouring directly onto it. If you were to do this at home and you pour a direct kettle, you'll get a lot more crap that gets into your final cup. And so by doing that, by having the water first, we were able to stop a lot of that. And if you were to lessen the amount of agitation like I did in mine, you would get even less. But for the most part, this is fully drawn through. You can see that there is there's obviously fines that have been caught, which is going to happen. So that's what you get with, you know, with metal sieves. As you're sitting there sipping from your martini glass, it's all gonna stay at the bottom, especially because of the shape of the glass. It's not gonna really wanna come up. So you keep it at the bottom, you sip your coffee, when there's sludge at the bottom, you're done. And let me tell you, it's hard to get better than cupping. Tim Wendelboe famously talks about how cupping is the best way to enjoy a coffee. He just doesn't do it all the time due to the potential higher cholesterol in it. So have fun with this, do different coffees. This can be your own way of cupping so you're not wasting coffee. It's much more approachable, a bit easier. You don't have to really worry about things as much. And you know, if you really wanted to go through and filter things at the end to get it super clean while still having that thick, robust body that's almost buttery, that intense sweetness, etc. Well, there you go. Shout out to Dan Yee for thinking of this so many years ago. And yeah, I hope I did some of that justice with my little spin on it. But anyway, let's go ahead and put this to the side since we have drained that. I'm gonna take a sip as we end the video. Oh my God, that is so clean. Once you put it through a filter, it becomes just so beautiful. But anyway, this is martini glass cupping. That's honestly the best this coffee has tasted. But why am I surprised? Cupping is always premium. Cupping and V60s are my life. I cup all the frickin' time. No surprise that this is just incredible, and it's something you can do as well. I use a glass small enough for a 12-gram dose because that's kind of ideal for me, but you can get a bigger cup. You can do whatever you want. The issue is you need to have something that will allow the grounds to be fully saturated. If you do kind of a rectangular cup, it's not going to do the same thing. So, oh, that's fantastic. Absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for watching the video. Again, all this stuff is to help you grow, to understand, to educate, and to, you know, enjoy some delicious coffee. So if you enjoyed it, please hit the like and subscribe. Give this a go at home. Let us know in the comments below if this is now one of your favorite ways to brew coffee. Honestly, I am confident it will be because it's just so good. And I think that's about it for today. So in the same way that I am doing this, I hope that you brew something tasty today. And cheers.